to start off talking quietly because I finally got my son to sleep. We had a day and a half yesterday and I need to just like share it with somebody because I'm like completely traumatized by it still. As many of you know, we live in Sweden. My husband is Swedish, but I'm an American, and so by proxy, my kids inherit American citizenship through me. And if we ever want to travel to the US, and also just in general, the US requires any person who would inherit citizenship, they require them to obtain that citizenship, because even if they never step foot in America, because they would inherit American citizenship, they are obligated to file taxes. Even if they've never lived in the US, never planned to live in the US, never stepped foot on US soil, because they would inherit US citizenship, they need to get it and they have to file taxes. Now, you can choose not to do that, but the IRS technically could come after you for that if that's the case. And so the protocol is, if you don't want American citizenship, you file for it, you obtain it, and then you pay several thousands of dollars to get rid of it. And then you're like free of it. Anyway, that's not what any of us were planning on doing, but we were supposed to go to my sister's wedding this fall. I have been talking about that for a year. I will get into why we're not going anymore later. Maybe in this video, maybe in another video. But suffice it to say, we're no longer going. However, we had already booked an appointment with the American Embassy in Stockholm to get this guy's citizenship and to renew my daughter's US passport and then to get him a US passport. And we decided, let's keep that appointment, let's get him his citizenship, let's get all the kids' documentation sorted. And I knew for taxation purposes, the child tax credit, everything like that, I wanted to just wanted to get him his citizenship so that when I file taxes, everything is sorted. So our appointment was yesterday, July 21st. It just so happens that it was like a record-breaking day of heat here. We got slammed by the heat wave that just hit the UK. And now we are traveling as a family of 5 with a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 12-week-old to the other side of the country to go to this appointment. It was at noon in Stockholm. The last time we went in November for my middle kid, we chose to drive. And it took us 7 hours to get there with bathroom breaks and stuff included. And of course, 7 hours to get back. We didn't want to spend money on a hotel or anything like that. So we went there early in the morning, we did the appointment, and we came back same day. So 14 hours of driving with, at that point, just our 5-year-old and 2-year-old at the time. And that car drive was traumatic for our 5-year-old. She is not diagnosed with ADHD, but trust me when I say this girl has ADHD. So we decide, because gas prices are soaring and because of what we went through in November with our 5-year-old and how difficult that car ride was, we decide we're gonna book the high-speed train from our region in Sweden to Stockholm. And that train was gonna take 2.5 hours. We started here in our local town, then we had one train change in Skövde, and then it went direct on SJ from Skövde to Stockholm. So let me just set the stage. I start preparing everything the night before, and I had all my paperwork and documentation. I had everything like that for the actual embassy appointment, but I had nothing packed. And then I had to start logistically thinking, holy shit, I need to pack for an entire day of pumping. I have never done this before. I've never left the house for longer than a couple hours. Between exclusive pumping for my last kid and then pumping for this kid. I don't technically exclusively pump for him, but I pump 8 times a day anyway. I pump every 2 to 3 hours still. And so we're gonna be gone from 5:30 in the morning until 9 p.m. at night. I needed to pack bottles. I needed to pack my pump. I needed to pack flanges. I needed to pack spare flanges just in case anything happened to my pump. And like, we've got to carry all this cargo with us, okay? Because we're going by train. We can't just leave anything in the car. So we have our single stroller, which the baby was going to be in. We brought the ergo as backup because, as you guys know, he'll only sleep in the ergo. He will not sleep in the stroller. And then we have our 2 kids. We brought this giant heavy cooler bag with a ton of ice bricks in it, where I had some milk that I pumped overnight, And then where I was gonna store all the milk I pumped during the day, and I was gonna do the fridge hack with my flanges and just store them in there. And so I needed a lot of space to put these milk collection bottles, regular bottles for him to drink. So we had that big cooler bag, then we had the diaper bag. I had to bring extra clothes for everyone because everyone in this house, well, all the kids are still having accidents every once in a while. And then we have a backpack, which my husband had my pump in. He had a giant 2-liter bottle of water. We had all of our paperwork for the embassy and a couple snacks and things like that. So we have all this gear. We can't put all of it into the stroller, so we're having to carry some of it, okay? We leave the house late because it took much longer than expected to wake up the kids, get them ready. So by the time we got to our local train station, we had to run. We decided we're gonna throw the big kids in the stroller. I'm gonna put the baby in the ergo. We load up all the gear, backpacks and everything on our bodies, and we were running. We had to run to the train station. We get there with a couple minutes to spare. So we get on, we're breathing. Whew, that was super stressful. Now we can relax. So we're on the train, everything is fine. We make the train change. The kids are a little rowdy, they're not listening. Okay, that's a little stressful. And our second train was delayed by, 15, 20 minutes. So that was also a little stressful because we didn't expect to just be sitting in the heat. Because although it was only like 8:30 or something in the morning at this point, it was still boilingly hot, okay? And we're totally exposed out there. We finally get on to the main train from Skövde to Stockholm. That went perfectly fine. He slept the entire way, thank God. I was able to discreetly rig up my pump using my pumping while baby wearing method, and then I just put a receiving blanket. I tucked it into the sides here so it covered my flanges, and it just sort of hung over and made this nice little drape over the baby. And then I was wearing my pump. I mean, obviously people could kind of see something was up, but no one was paying attention. So, and not to mention, he's sleeping in the ergo the whole time on that train. It was a 2.5-hour train from Skövde to Stockholm. And I can't sit when I'm baby wearing him because he wakes up, and it's also very uncomfortable for me too. So I stood that entire 2.5 hours, pumping on and off, whatever, baby carrying. So we make it, and we have I think it was 2 hours to go until our appointment, but we decided to get a cab right away, have the cab drop us off at the embassy, so we're in that area. And then once we got there, we would walk to a local cafe. We assumed there would be air conditioning. At literally any place we went to, we assumed there would be air conditioning, at least at some of these places that we went to in Stockholm. So they drop us off, and we're trying to organize ourselves, get everything packed and arranged, and we realize the kids are not going to walk. They are whining. They're whining a lot. They're tired. It's hot. Their feet hurt. So we put them both, we just let them sit side by side in our stroller, and now I'm baby wearing, and this is after already having stood on a train for 2.5 hours. My body was already sore. I'm not wearing my Crocs. I'm wearing regular shoes. So my feet are already killing me, and it's only 10 a.m. And so we walk about 1 kilometer to a local cafe, and there is no AC. Nobody freaking has air conditioning. Everyone just has the windows and doors wide open, and there's no air conditioning. So now we end up at a cafe, and we're sitting under an umbrella, there's shade. And I have to pump. And the kids are just whining, and they're really bothered, and my husband and I are already stressed out. Thankfully, the baby's chill. So I have to pump. So I rig up my pump, and all of a sudden one of my flanges is not working. It's got 50% the suction power. And I cannot figure out why. You guys, I am a pro at pumping at this point. I could not figure out why. I couldn't figure out why I had lost suction. The tubing was perfectly fine and connected. My valve and membrane was on properly and flapping properly. All the pieces were securely assembled and tightened. I had full contact to my skin with the flange. There's no reason that I was losing suction, but I was only getting 50% suction. And at that moment, I'm like, thank you, Jesus, that I had the foresight to bring an extra full set of flanges just in case something like this happened. It has literally never happened to me, ever. I've accumulated at least 2 years worth of pumping at this point. It's never happened to me before. So, okay, I switch out my flange, I get it to work, crisis avoided. So we leave, and then we walk the kilometer and a half, whatever, back to the embassy. And the embassy was actually the highlight of the day. It went perfectly. So we pack up, And we realize, okay, this is how it's going to be. I'm going to just have to baby wear the baby, and the bigger kids are going to have to sit in the stroller, because now we have 4 whole hours before our train leaves. When we were at the embassy, my husband tried to look and see if he could pay for an upgrade to get us onto an earlier train, but they were all booked. So it's 12:30 and our train doesn't leave until 4:30. And we had planned on going to a park and having a picnic. But of course, it's like Armageddon outside in terms of the heat. We're hungry, we are exhausted. We've been up since 5:30. It's been already an incredibly stressful day. And now we have 4 entire hours to figure out what to do with 2 kids and a baby. I'm boiling, right? Because I'm so hot baby wearing him, and I've been on my feet all day with this mass on me. My back hurt, my feet hurt, my knees are starting to hurt. Everything is starting to hurt. So we skip the plan to go to the park, and we decide to go to Max Burger, which is 2 kilometers into town. Max Burger is like sort of the Swedish version of McDonald's. It's the same thing. It's a burger joint. Because we think to ourselves, there's got to be air conditioning in this giant chain restaurant, okay? There's got to be AC, and there's going to be an indoor play place. Neither one of us really thought, oh my God, we're going into literally like the middle of the biggest, busy, touristy section of Stockholm. And of course, they're not going to have a play place there. It's going to be packed there. So we get to Max, and I see the doors wide open, and I thought to myself, holy shit. There's going to be no air conditioning in there. I was really counting on being able to bring my core body temperature down. I have sweat now through not only all of my clothes, but I've sweat through all of his clothes in this contact. He and I are soaked, okay? And he's chill. I was fanning him the whole time and shielding him from the sun, so he was fine. I was not. I was hyperventilation status at that point, and it's only 1:30 right now in this story. So we get to the store. My husband, bless his heart, is wearing like a thick cotton polo and dark jeans because we dressed up, somewhat nicely, presentable, whatever. And so he is just, soaked. And at that point, when we were walking to Max, he was pushing both kids in the stroller. He had the backpack on, and he had that heavy cooler bag. I was carrying it halfway, but was really struggling under the weight of that and the baby and just my heat in general. So he took the cooler bag, and so then I just had the baby. So he's already worked up a huge sweat. And now we go inside to Max Burger. It is hotter inside than it is outside because obviously they're cooking food and it's packed with people. Thankfully, we found seating. My husband goes to the kiosk to start ordering food, and my daughter suddenly says, I have to pee right now. I'm going to pee my pants. And I look over at the bathrooms, and there's a line going to the door from the bathrooms all the way to the door. And I'm like, Macy, there's no way. And like, so we get to the table. She has to panic pee. I had just unstrapped the baby and saw he was soaked. I'm hyperventilating from heat exhaustion. So I'm like breathing heavily, trying to bring down my core body temperature, to be honest. Drinking water and everything, looking over the 2 kids. I've got my daughter's panicking, saying she has to go to the bathroom, and I can't do anything. I can't take all 3 of these kids and wait in line, and we'd lose our table. My husband is at the kiosk trying to order the food. So I'm like, Macy, you gotta wait. So then my husband comes. He manages somehow to keep track of our food and get our food. Yeah, look at that. Keep track of our food. And also stand in line with my daughter. And I see her just deteriorating, freaking out. She's going to pee her pants. Okay. And it turns out that they were doing maintenance on the bathrooms. And my husband said they were buffering the floors with this line going out the door. For people to use the bathroom, they choose to buffer the floors. I don't know, maybe it's required. It just seems like pretty cosmetic in the circumstance that people were in. They should have at least let people go in and go to the bathroom while they were doing it. Anyway. So my husband had no other choice but to take her outside, and she made it a few steps out the door before. Anyway, they ended up in an alley behind the restaurant where she full on peed. In the alley, in broad daylight, at the lunch hour in Stockholm city center. So that happened. They come back in, we eat, we cool down somewhat. Baby is super chill. He's laying down in the stroller. Everything is good, okay? We've eaten, we've drank, we've cooled down as best we can inside a very packed restaurant where it's like 100 degrees already. At least we were able to sit down. I was able to get the baby off of me and dry off. But now we have still 3 hours? 3 hours at this point to kill. And so we decide, let's go to the central train station where our train is going to be departing from, because it's like an airport, okay? And that surely has to have air conditioning. And there will be space for the kids to run around, and we will just deal with it. So we go in, and yeah, the air conditioning wasn't great, but it was at least much cooler than it was outside. But it was packed. It was packed. So here we go, the train station story. I need to use the restroom like ASAP, and my daughter needs to go too. And I still have the baby on. So we go down, we wait in this big old line, and then it's finally our turn to like get inside, and it turns out you need to have a train ticket to be able to get inside. Now, we did have a train ticket. I didn't think to bring it. And the guy goes, okay, you don't have a train ticket, you have to pay 10 crowns, which is $1. I didn't have any money or any coins or anything on me. I just expected to be able to go to the bathroom. And here I've got a kid who needs to go to the bathroom. I am about to like pee my pants. And so he looks at us and he goes, well, are you going to also change the baby? I'm like, yeah. He's like, just go in. He's like, it doesn't matter, just go in. He saw that we were a mess. So we go in, and then I realized I didn't bring a diaper or wipes to change the baby. So I'm like, it's fine, whatever. The stroller is reclined, you know, I'm just going to change him in the stroller. We'll find a corner to like tuck ourselves away at. So we go to the bathroom, everything is fine. It was the best experience of my life being able to pee. And then we go back up to where my husband and my son are, and now my son has to go to the bathroom so badly. So then my husband and my son go down to go to the bathroom. While my daughter and I are waiting, I take the baby off of the ergo, I lay him down in the stroller, I'm gonna find a corner to like change him in. And I notice the cushion he's sitting on is wet, right where his legs should be. And so then I look at him and I see the classic yellow wet staining of a full-on blowout diaper. Normally he tells me when he has to poop, because he does this certain grunting and moving and this thing with his hands where I know, okay, he has to poop, and I will either, you know, lay him down, do bicycle legs, help him if he needs it. He didn't cue that this time. So I had no idea he had pooped in the carrier. so we have a blowout diaper situation. I did have an extra outfit for him, and I had diapers and wipes and everything, but I could not bring myself to take the baby down to the bathroom and face that attendant again and wait in that line again. I couldn't do it. So we look around for an empty corner, and the only corner we could find was a corner where there also was an ATM just right off to the side, but no one was using it. Like, this corner was dead empty. It was dark, it was dead empty. So we go over there, and I'm now wiping just poop off of every surface of my son. Full on blowout. And then what happens? Like 9,000 people come and queue up at the ATM right next to us. So that was really stressful. You know, my poor baby's junk is everywhere. I'm cleaning up poop, like there's just poop everywhere. Luckily there was a garbage can right in front of us, so I was just passing things off to my husband. He'd walk it over to the garbage can, he'd come back for more. That whole thing happened. So once we resolved that, I could notice my husband was on his phone a lot and he was stressing out. And I'm like, what's the matter? We had 2.5 hours now to go through before our train leaves. And he goes, well, our train still says it's on time, but it says that there's an electricity failure on the railway path, sort of in the middle of our train ride. But he goes, the train still says it's leaving on time. It doesn't say it's going to be in delay. So hopefully it will be okay. We just have to monitor it. And at that point, my stomach just fell to the floor. It has been such a stressful, exhausting day at this point. And we can't find anywhere peaceful to sit down, and the kids are really starting to get maniacal. You know, they're running around chasing each other, laughing, screaming. You know, we can't really rein them in. And to their credit, like, they have a lot of pent-up energy. They haven't been able to do anything. We've been barking orders at them the whole day, right? You guys stand still, stay with us, don't get lost. You're gonna get stolen, you're gonna get hit by a car. Like, you gotta stay with us. They are not conditioned for city life. We live majorly rurally. We haven't gone out with them since the pandemic started. So they don't really know how to act, and they're young, you know, it's hard for them to understand. So we find this sports bar called O'Leary's. My husband doesn't drink, and I mean, neither do I, because, you know, breastfeeding and stuff. But we order some drinks just to allow us to get a table so that we can sit down, recover. There's AC in O'Leary's. The world competition for track and field was going on. We've been watching it, so they had it on the screen, so we were able to watch a little bit of that. The kids got some apple juice. We'd already eaten, so we just decided we're gonna sit in the cool, we're gonna hydrate, we're gonna charge our phones, because there's outlets everywhere, and O'Leary's was pretty empty. So we found like a nice whole entire room pretty much to ourselves. So the kids were able to sort of play around and make noise a little bit. But now my husband is freaking out because it's still an electricity failure, and we've got like an hour before our train is supposed to go now. We have no idea if it's gonna go. And here is where the massive stress comes in for me. I hate myself for this. I did not pack the charging cable for my Spectra. I have a Spectra S1. So I made sure it was fully loaded. I charged it all overnight. When I woke up to pump in the middle of the night, I'd pump, and then I brought it back and I plugged it in the charger. It had a full charge. I've never gone from a full charge to an empty charge before. I don't know how long that lasts. I don't think it will get me through 24 hours of exclusive pumping, especially because I have to pump for 45 minutes each session. And I pump like 8 times a day. So thereabouts. Sometimes I do a half hour, and sometimes it's 7 times a day, but you know what I mean. I knew though that if everything had gone accordingly, I would have enough charge to make it from 5:30 in the morning until 7 in the evening. I just knew. I knew I could. Because we were supposed to get home. We were supposed to be home by 7. I had it in my mind, you know, I really should pack this cable, and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting to be like way too packy. I've already packed extra flanges. I'm packing too much stuff. I don't want to pack anything else. And I just kind of like at the last minute sort of forgot about it. And I'm like, I don't need it. I wanted to kill myself because you can't get a Spectra in this country. And even if you could, there's no store. Like, you'd have to order it online or something. And we're an O'Leary sports bar. So now we're facing the fact that we are all absolutely to the brink, maxed out with stress. Our kids are maxed out with dealing with our stress, and they're bored to all heck. Everyone is hot. Everyone is exhausted. We've been up since the butt crack of dawn. And now we're facing train delays. And what are we gonna do? We can't just stay shacked up at O'Leary's the whole time. This could go on and on and on all night. So we have like an hour before the train is supposed to go, before we know if it's gonna leave on time or not. My husband says, look, as long as the train leaves on time and it can get to this one particular stop where the electricity fail was, we can get off there, we can get a cab, take that cab to Huddle, where we would get our train change and then take our second train home. Yes, my love?
Hi.
Hi. So like that's what we were planning on, because he looked at the buses. All the buses were full from that one stop to Huddle. So we would have to take a cab. It would be expensive, but whatever, we'd do it. But that's all hedging on the fact that the train would leave on time. If the train doesn't leave on time, we're on the brink of running out of time on my pump. My baby won't nurse full feeds. I've run out of clean bottles for him. I've run out of clean pump parts for him. I don't have soap. I mean, I could have bought soap to wash my stuff in like a bathroom, a public bathroom or whatever, if I actually absolutely had to. But what am I going to do about my supply and my boobs? Like, I'm already hurt. I'm already trying to space out my pumpings to let the battery work. Because, here's another thing. When my pump was in the backpack, at some point it got turned on and it went a full cycle. So I've like lost a whole 30 minutes of pumping time on my pump. So now I'm starting to panic, and I'm like, all right, well, we can spend several thousand crowns, like a couple $100, and we could buy a Medela pump. And my flanges, because I have special flanges, I have 15 millimeter flanges. Thankfully, I knew that they would be compatible with a Medela pump setup. And I've got like the Medela valves and membranes and everything, so it would work. I'd need to buy a new pump, but I'd be able to get my parts to work, and okay, we could do that. But still, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna have to get a hotel and stay overnight? What are we gonna do? So my husband looks up flights. How much would it cost for us to fly from Arlanda back to Gothenburg, and then my father-in-law could come pick us up there? There were no flights. There were no other trains. There was nothing. Our options were to rent a car for God knows how much money and drive 7 hours with that car. We'd have to get car seats for it and everything, 7 hours home, or we'd have to find a bus. And so my husband's looking up the buses, and they're all booked except for one bus. One bus was not fully booked, and it left in 45 minutes. And we looked at each other and we're like, okay. And it's like 2,000 crowns to book this bus. It's $200 bus fare. And we're like, oh my God, what do we do? Do we gamble and assume that the train will go? Or do we book this bus and just say, F the train and we'll take it by bus? The bus, it was gonna take like 7 hours. Well, it would take 5 hours to get us to Jönköping. And then my father-in-law would have to drive 2.5 hours to pick us up and take us home. Completely not ideal, but at least it would get us home. At least we would know and we'd have a timetable, and we knew my pump would last. I would shorten my pumping sessions to like 20 minutes to conserve battery and space it out to like 3.5 hours instead of 2.5 to 3 hours. We would get home. So my husband goes and talks to the train table people, and he's like, what's the deal? And they're like, we can't guarantee anything, but this train will have delays. And when they said that, because she said that the electricity failure had messed up a ton of trains. So there's like a whole queue of trains that need to depart. So even if it was fixed now, they'd have to space out all the trains and let each one go. So we're looking at hours of delay. So my husband's like, done. That makes up our decision. So he books this bus. He comes back to me. We put the shoes on the kids. We load everything up, and we have to run in the heat. It's like 36 degrees outside now, 90s, baby wearying, okay? Oh, and also when we were at O'Leary's, this little guy, turns out he was having belly pain. I didn't know at the time, but I couldn't get him to eat. He was freaking out, he was crying. It was time for him to nap, but I couldn't get him to sleep. It was just this whole thing. So I have this screaming baby in a restaurant. I'm already maxed out. I was pacing back and forth in that restaurant, like scream praying in my head to God, please make there be a solution. And then this one bus pops up and it's leaving in 45 minutes. So we full on run to the bus terminal, and we get there and everything is fine. And at this point my boobs are hurting so badly because I need to pump. But my husband had to go and pick a bunch of water and food up because we had nothing at this point, and there's nothing on the bus, and we can't sit on a 4.5 hour bus travel without water and stuff like that. And the kids had to go to the bathroom, so he takes them to the bathroom, he loads up stuff. At this point, I was able to get him to nurse, thankfully, because I was so full. And so I'm nursing him in the ergo, waiting for my husband and the kids to come back. People are queuing up for the bus. They're starting to load up. And I ask him, I'm like, look, is there reserved seating on this bus? He goes, no. And I'm like, oh my God, like, how are we gonna make it so that we're all sitting together? There's a huge line in front of us. He goes, don't worry, we'll get people to rearrange themselves. They will let us sit together. We will figure it out. So we start queuing up to go onto this bus. We had the stroller. My husband bought special cargo space in this bus. So he says, take the kids. I will handle all the luggage. I'll put the stroller in the cargo, and then I'll bring the bags up with us so we have everything we need. Okay, awesome. I can't begin to tell you guys my mental state at this point because I am very poorly holding back tears just from being completely overwhelmed. I'm so overwhelmed. I only slept an hour and a half the night before because I was getting everything ready. My baby, oh my gosh, the baby woke up. You guys, my baby sleeps through the night. He wakes up maybe once to eat. He woke up 4 times that night, and he was completely out of sync with my pumping. So I'd be up 45 minutes pumping, I'd sleep for 15 minutes, then he would wake up to eat. And it would take me a half hour to feed him, put him back down, and then I'd have to like get up and pump, half hour later. It was like that the whole night. In retrospect, thank God, because I knew he was hydrated, and I think that's really what got him through, because he wasn't eating well at all throughout yesterday. Anyway, so I'm just purely, completely spent, completely overwhelmed, maxed out with anxiety, so stressed out, so worried about something else happening. My body, hurts so bad. I am so dehydrated and overheated. And I know this. I know I've got to eat. I've got to drink. I've got to do all these things to keep I'm so worried about my milk supply. You know, my milk supply is going to get hit. So it's a double-decker bus, and I see through the windows that there's a lot of space on the upper floor of the bus. So I'm like, okay, let's beeline for the upper part of the bus. We'll get our 4 seats. Everything will be fine. We step onto this bus, which, mind you, has been sitting in the sun on a day where it's now upwards of 100 degrees. I think it was about 37 degrees centigrade. So it's just under 100 degrees, 99, 98 degrees, sitting in the sun. We step onto the bus and immediately it feels like you've walked into an oven. There is no AC. And I'm like, I should have known, I should have followed my gut and said to not get on that bus. It's not compatible with human life to go onto a bus. And there's a ton of people behind us to still load onto the bus, and people are loading on cargo. This bus is not going to be leaving anytime soon. I don't know what happened to my motherly instinct to say, let's just keep going. Let's go to the top floor of the bus, which not only is exposed to all the sun, but heat rises. What was I thinking to think that it would be any better up there? But we go up and immediately I couldn't breathe. Immediately the panic set in. I've got this baby, I've got my 2 small kids. We've got no water. We have nothing. So we go, we're walking. We went to the back, and thank God I chose to get us right where there was an emergency. It was like in the middle of the bus, there was a stairwell that went down because the toilet was there was a toilet that was located sort of in the middle of the bus on the bottom floor. So I originally had us set up in the first seats just behind the stairwell. And we sit down and I'm immediately panicking. Oh my God, this is not good. This is not good. This is not good. I'm at this point afraid, like, my baby's going to die in this heat. I'm going to suffocate and die. My children are going to die. Like, we're going to die in this bus. It must have been at least 120 Fahrenheit. I'm already super dehydrated and already super maxed out and already heat exhausted. And now I'm sitting in an oven with my baby and my 2 kids. And I think to myself, window, there's got to be a window. I'm panicking. Open a window. No windows. The windows don't open. Nothing opens. There's no air vent. And there's people loading up. People still coming up the stairwell. And it's a very narrow stairwell. There's no way we're going to be able to get off this bus the way we came on. But we had this middle of the bus stairwell. Okay. So I'm like, I can't breathe. At this point, I start audibly saying, help, help, help. Okay. Looking around, trying to get someone to help me. Is there any way that we can open windows? I'm going to not survive this. So I'm like, you guys, I took my kids. We got to go. So we went down that bottom stairwell, and I tried to think that I can exit the bus through the main door. I thought there was an emergency door there. It wouldn't open. So people still filing in through the main door. People coming in, trying to sit down in the lower part. And at this point, I'm like, like making a whole scene. Everyone's looking at me like, do we call the ambulance style issue? Freaking out, telling people I can't breathe. Luckily, I made eye contact. My husband was right at the door about to come into the bus. And I look at him and I yelled at him, I can't breathe. I've got the kids are scared. The baby's screaming now. The bus was swelteringly hot. And he looks at me and he's just drenched in sweat from having just handled this whole, he's going through just as much anxiety and heat exhaustion and dehydration as me. And he looks at me and he's like, there's nothing he can do. And the driver is still outside of the bus. Like, get inside the bus and turn it on, turn the air on. People are going to die in this. Like, what is happening? And people are still coming onto this sweltering bus. I collapsed on the floor. I don't know how I maintained the baby in my arms, because at this point I had taken him out of the ergo because I was going to die if I kept him in this. We were both suffocating. I just have him in my arms. I collapse in the floor. And thank God, there was one person who said, do you need water? Then this saint of a woman, I didn't get her name. I don't know anything about her. I wish I'd asked for her name. she has a little handheld fan. And she comes up and she just starts fanning me and the baby. And she has her hand on my shoulder. Don't worry, it's gonna be okay. Just breathe, just breathe. It's okay. Everything's gonna be okay. There's gonna be air soon. Just breathe. And then from over the seat, someone hands me a wet wipe, a baby wipe or something. And so I like, you know, got us all wetted down. And she's like fanning us off. And I'm still hyperventilating, but at least this point I'm not, you know, wheezing. And I don't even know, I was standing there for maybe 15 minutes. It was a really, really, really long time before that bus driver got onto the bus and turned the air on. And she just stood there, God love her, fanning me down, talking to me, trying to keep me from, it was not her job. My husband was up with the kids, the bigger kids, trying to get them calmed down and settled and hydrated and make sure they're not gonna overheat. It was not her job to take care of me, and she did. She's just like, look at me, look at me, look at my eyes, everything is fine. Just breathe. And meanwhile, the baby was so good. He was so calm, so calm. Anyway, finally the bus driver turns it on, he gets the air going, he gets on the intercom and apologizes. Apparently he was having technical difficulties with his ticket reading thing, and so he didn't think to go on, and he hadn't been on the bus. He hadn't gone in yet and seen how hot it was. Yes, my love. So the story ends good. I mean, I was able to pump, and like strangely, my milk supply was not impacted at all. In fact, I actually pumped more milk, but we cooled down and he slept the entire 4 hours on the bus. Unfortunately though, I had to wear him. So after like almost having heat stroke, I stood stationary on that bus for 4 hours, baby wearing a sleeping baby, because I didn't dare wake him. I didn't want him to wake up. I didn't want him to be upset and cry and scream, because there was nowhere I could go with him. It was a very tight bus. There's no place I could just like, no quiet corner like there is on a train where I can like, you know, not disturb the other passengers. It was just, it was gonna be a screaming baby, you know. And then my father-in-law came and picked us up, and then it was an hour drive. I was crippled with exhaustion at that point, but I had such bad restless leg syndrome that whole ride home. Anyway, we finally got home, and that's where the story ends. And I woke up this morning still feeling absolutely hungover. I have electrolyte water that I'm trying to chug. My milk supply has been fantastic, you guys. Like, maybe I need to get heat stroke and dehydrated and maxed out with stress more often so that my milk supply goes up. I can't explain it. You want water, baby? Okay. I gotta go. I gotta feed these kids lunch. But I needed to preserve that story because it was atrocious. And even if circumstances didn't dictate that we needed to cancel our flight this fall to the US, this would have. Even if we were full on ready to go to the US, we would have canceled 100%. Because this whole ordeal yesterday was absolutely traumatic. And having to do plane changes multiple times for each of our itineraries, and me pumping all the gear, yeah, it wouldn't have worked. I'm just editing this video and I realized I didn't film an outro. So that is the story. Still, like multiple times a day, I'm having these waves of relief, just thinking like, I am so thankful I'm home. Okay, I gotta go. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.